There's something fascinating about the way we remember people. When you think back to the people who have impacted you most, it's rarely the logistics of the conversation you recall. You don't remember the exact wording, the precise order of sentences, or the technical details of what they said. What you remember is how they made you feel. That imprint, that lingering feeling, is what defines the memory. And here's the part that most people don't realize: the way you say goodbye carries more weight than almost anything else. It's in that final moment, when the encounter is closing, that you get to decide whether you'll simply fade into the background of his day, or whether you'll etch yourself into his mind in a way that he'll carry long after you've gone. Most people rush their goodbyes. They get caught in the momentum of leaving, grabbing their bag, checking their phone, thinking about the next thing they have to do. And in that hurry, they miss the chance to create something unforgettable. The truth is, those little moments of transition, hellos and goodbyes, are the most emotionally charged. Think about it. When someone walks into a room, you notice them. When they leave, you notice them. These are moments of heightened awareness, which means if you do something intentional in those moments, it lands with far more power. Leaving an emotional imprint doesn't require drama or grand gestures or a line from a movie script. In fact, it's the opposite. It's about slowing down and becoming deeply present. Instead of rushing the goodbye, pause. Look him in the eye. Let there be that tiny silence that says, "I'm here with you right now, and I'm not just another passing face in your day." Most people avoid this. Silence feels uncomfortable. Prolonged eye contact feels vulnerable, but that's exactly why it's unforgettable. Because in a world where everyone's distracted and in a hurry, the person who's not in a hurry, the person who takes an extra moment, stands out. I want you to imagine this. You've just had a great evening together. Maybe it was a date. Maybe it was a casual hangout. Maybe you just ran into each other. The moment is ending. Now, if you do what everyone else does, you'll give the quick hug, say, "This was fun," and walk away. Fine. But does that linger? Not really. Now imagine instead that you pause. You look at him, hold that look for just a second longer than usual, and say something as simple as, "I don't want to leave just yet." That pause, that honesty, that willingness to feel the moment, it hits him. That's when he drives home thinking, "Wow, she's different. I can still feel her energy with me." What's powerful about this isn't the exact words. It's the intention behind them. You're not trying to perform. You're not trying to impress. You're allowing yourself to be real. And real is magnetic. Real is rare. Men don't forget real. There's a part of us that craves acknowledgement, that wants to know we're seen. When you give someone that feeling in a goodbye, you're giving them a gift most people overlook. Even something as subtle as holding his hand a moment longer or letting your voice soften when you say, "I loved being with you today," creates an emotional stamp. It's not about convincing him of anything. It's about letting him feel you. Because long after words are forgotten, feelings remain. Think of the last time someone left you with that kind of presence. Maybe it was a friend who hugged you a little longer than expected, or someone who looked back at you one last time before walking away. You remember it, don't you? That's the kind of memory that replays in someone's mind when they're lying in bed at night. That's what makes them smile when they think of you. That's what makes them reach out again. And the beauty is, this isn't about strategy or manipulation. It's about choosing not to sleepwalk through moments that matter. Because most of us do. We live so much of life on autopilot, but when you stop and actually show up for that goodbye, you wake him up. You jolt him into presence, and he leaves carrying that energy. He may not even be able to explain why you stick in his mind, but you will. The mistake so many people make is believing that in order to be unforgettable, they have to be the loudest, the funniest, the most impressive. But that's not it. What really makes someone unforgettable is presence. The stillness of being there fully, even for a few seconds. You don't have to have the perfect line. You just need to be there. And in that space, in that pause, he'll feel something he doesn't feel with most people, that he matters, that this moment matters. So, what does it look like in practice? It can be as simple as this. When you're saying goodbye, resist the urge to rush. Resist the urge to break the eye contact too soon. Let him feel the weight of your gaze. Let him feel your smile linger just a moment longer. Say something small but sincere, like, "I'm glad I saw you today." And then, when you finally pull away, don't turn it into a performance. Just let the simplicity of that moment hang. It's that very simplicity that makes it powerful. When you do this, you create a contrast. Because here's the truth. Most people are forgettable not because they're uninteresting, but because they blend into the noise. They say goodbye like everyone else says goodbye. They move on like everyone else moves on. But the person who slows down, who dares to create space, who lets themselves be a little vulnerable, that person is remembered. That's the person he replays in his mind. That's the person he measures others against. And isn't that what you want? Not to be one of many, but to be the one who lingers. To be the thought that pops up unexpectedly, the memory that resurfaces when he least expects it. That's the power of leaving an emotional imprint. It doesn't take effort. It takes presence. It takes the courage to let the moment breathe. So the next time you find yourself about to walk away, about to say that casual goodbye, stop for just a second. Ask yourself, how can I make this moment count? Because when you do, you'll find that it's not just another goodbye. It's the beginning of the memory he'll never want to forget. There's something we often underestimate about goodbyes. We think of them as the end of a moment, almost like punctuation at the end of a sentence. But the truth is, a goodbye is one of the few chances you have to leave behind something that resonates. Something that sticks. And what makes it stick isn't how clever or charming you are in that moment. It's whether you chose to say the thing that actually mattered. We live in a world where most of us don't say what's really on our minds. We keep it polite. We keep it surface level. We keep it safe. And sure, that works. You can get by with safe, but safe never leaves an impression. Safe is forgettable. If you want to be remembered, if you want him to walk away and still be thinking about you hours later, days later, you have to take that tiny risk of going deeper. Think about the last time someone surprised you by saying something unexpectedly real. Maybe it was a friend who looked you in the eye and said, "I'm really proud of you." Or someone who admitted, "I always feel calmer when you're around." These aren't big, dramatic declarations, but they hit differently because they're rare. People rarely say the thing they're actually feeling. They hold it back, hoping the other person somehow already knows. But what makes us unforgettable is when we don't hold it back. When we actually say it. Imagine you're with him, the night is ending, and you're about to say goodbye. You could say something safe like, "That was fun, let's do it again." Fine. But anyone could say that. Now imagine instead you take just a breath, you lean in a little closer, and you tell him, "I really love the way you made me laugh tonight." Or, "It's always so easy being around you." Those are simple statements, but they carry weight because they're specific, because they're true, because they give him a glimpse into how he actually made you feel. That's the kind of line that replays in someone's head later when they're lying in bed. The beauty of saying what matters most is that it doesn't need to be long. In fact, shorter is better. A single honest sentence has more impact than 10 vague ones. What gives it power is the courage to say something that reveals a piece of yourself. Vulnerability is magnetic, and when you give him that glimpse, you create a moment he can't just brush off. He has to feel it. And I get it. It's scary. There's always that voice that says, "What if I sound too much? What if he doesn't feel the same way? What if it ruins the moment?" But think about it. Well, the moments you remember most in your own life are rarely the perfectly polished ones. They're the raw ones. The moments someone dared to say something real, even if it wasn't perfectly packaged. That's what made them stick. That's why you still remember them. Sometimes what matters most is appreciation. Sometimes it's acknowledgement. Sometimes it's a small confession that you've been holding back. But whatever it is, don't wait until it's too late. Don't assume you'll have another chance to say it. Because even if you do, the power of saying it now, before you part, is what gives that goodbye its weight. It's what turns a casual exit into a moment that matters. Let me give you an example. You've probably had a night where you had a great time with someone, and as you were leaving, you wanted to say something like, "I love how you always make me feel comfortable." But instead you swallowed it. You told yourself, "Maybe next time." And then the moment passed, and afterward you regret it because you realize that was the thing you should have said. We do this all the time. We rob ourselves of the chance to leave someone with a piece of truth that would have made them smile, that would have made them remember us. But when you don't hold back, when you actually say it, you flip the script. You stop being the person who blends into the blur of goodbyes and become the person who leaves a mark. Because here's the reality. People forget small talk. They forget logistics. But they don't forget how it felt when you told them the truth about what they mean to you, even in some small way. That feeling lingers. That feeling is what makes them want to come back. And it doesn't always have to be about love or attraction. Even with friends, colleagues, family, it's the same principle. If you tell someone, "You inspire me," or "You make me feel safe," or "You have no idea how much you helped me tonight," you give them a gift, a rare one, because hardly anyone takes the time to say those things. Everyone assumes the other person knows. But the truth is, most people don't know. And hearing it is what makes them light up inside. Hearing it is what makes them want more of you in their life. There's another layer to this. When you say what matters most, you also free yourself. You stop carrying around unsaid words. You stop living in that frustrating space of, "I wish I had told him." You walk away knowing you gave the moment your truth. And that's empowering. That means no matter what happens next, you can feel good about how you showed up. So here's what I want you to try. Next time you're with him and the goodbye moment comes, ask yourself, what's the one thing I would regret not saying? Don't overthink it. Don't make it dramatic. Just let yourself say it. Whether it's as simple as, "I love how you look at me," or as playful as, "You have no idea how much fun I had tonight." Say it. Say what matters. Because those are the words that stick. Those are the words that echo long after you've walked away. And if you think about it, that's what we all want in the end. Not to be remembered for being perfect or impressive, but to be remembered for being real, for showing someone how we actually felt in the moment. That's what makes you unforgettable. That's what makes the goodbye linger in his mind and his heart. So don't let fear rob you of that. Don't let hesitation silence the words that could make the biggest impact. Say what matters most, because when you do, that's the line he'll never forget. There's something about touch that words can never quite replace. You can say a lot to someone with your voice, but the moment you reach out, whether it's a hand on their arm, a hug that lingers, or even the smallest squeeze of their hand, you've crossed into a different language. And that language is remembered far more deeply than anything you could have said. Because touch bypasses logic. It goes straight to the heart, straight to the nervous system. It's primal, it's intimate, and it's one of the most powerful ways to leave a lasting impression in those final seconds of a goodbye. Most people underestimate the power of a simple gesture. They think it has to be dramatic. But in reality, the smallest touch, done with intention, is unforgettable. Imagine this: he's about to leave, and instead of just saying bye, you let your hand lightly graze his arm as you speak. It's not big, it's not obvious, but it leaves a trace. Your touch lingers on his skin after you've gone. He'll feel that on the drive home, when he's brushing his teeth, when he lies in bed. That's the kind of subtle intimacy that makes someone replay a moment in their mind again and again. Now, I know what some people might be thinking. But isn't that too much? Isn't it obvious? Here's the truth. It's not about the size of the gesture, it's about the authenticity behind it. A hug that is rushed, where you're already pulling away before you've really connected, feels hollow. But a hug where you let yourself breathe for a second, where your body actually relaxes into his, now that's a memory. That's not just a hello or a goodbye. That's a feeling. Think about your own experiences. Have you ever been hugged by someone who was halfway out the door already in their mind? You can feel it. It's like their body was there, but they weren't. And then, on the other hand, have you ever been hugged by someone who was truly present with you in that moment? Where you could tell they weren't rushing, they weren't distracted, they were actually giving you their energy, if only for 2 seconds. You remember that, because we all crave those moments of real human connection. It doesn't have to be a hug, of course. Sometimes it's something even smaller. A playful touch on the shoulder as you're laughing together. A gentle squeeze of his hand as you say goodbye. Even brushing his hair off his forehead in a moment of intimacy. These gestures communicate volumes without a single word being spoken. And the reason they stick is because they create an anchor, a physical reminder of the emotional connection you've shared. There's another layer to this. When you add touch to a goodbye, you're not just making him remember you in that moment, you're creating an association. Every time he feels that sensation again, the warmth of someone's hand, the weight of a hug, there's a part of him that gets reminded of you. That's why a gesture can be so powerful. It links you to a feeling, and feelings are what we remember. Now, sometimes people worry, what if it feels forced? But that's the beauty of touch. It doesn't have to be big or elaborate to be natural. If you're already feeling close in that moment, the smallest physical gesture will feel like the most natural extension of the connection. The key is not to overthink it. Don't plan it like a performance. Let it come from the real emotion you're feeling. If you're genuinely grateful, a squeeze of his hand will express that better than words. If you're feeling playful, a little push on the arm will carry that energy better than a joke. And here's the thing, men don't forget how a woman makes them feel physically, but not in the way you might think. I'm not just talking about passion or intimacy. I'm talking about the comfort, the warmth, the gentleness that comes with a simple, intentional touch. That's the part that lingers. That's what separates you from every other interaction he's had that day, that week. Because let's be honest, how often do people really touch each other with intention anymore? Most of us are glued to our phones, brushing past each other without presence. So when you show up with that rare kind of energy, it shocks the system in the best way. Gestures, too, can have the same effect. Maybe it's something small you give him before you leave. A note, a little keepsake, even something silly that becomes your inside joke. That object then carries your energy. It's a physical reminder he can't ignore. Every time he sees it, he thinks of you. It doesn't need to be grand. In fact, the smaller and more personal, the better. Something that feels like it's just between the two of you. That's what makes it powerful. I remember someone once telling me about how, after a date, she handed the guy a tiny folded piece of paper with a single line written on it. Nothing dramatic, just something playful they had laughed about earlier. That one little gesture became the thing he kept in his wallet for months. Why? Because it wasn't about the paper. It was about the thought behind it. It was about the fact that she took the moment of goodbye and turned it into something tangible. That's the kind of thing that sticks. What all of this comes down to is presence. A touch is just a touch if your mind is elsewhere. A gesture is just an object if it doesn't come from genuine emotion. But when you bring your full presence into it, that's when it becomes unforgettable. That's when you leave him not just with a memory, but with a feeling he can't shake. So the next time you're saying goodbye, ask yourself, how can I anchor this moment in a way he'll feel later? Maybe it's as simple as holding him just a second longer. Maybe it's letting your hand linger on his arm. Maybe it's giving him something small to hold on to. Whatever it is, let it come from you, from the truth of what you're feeling in that moment. Because that's what will make him feel it too. And when you do, you won't just be another person he said goodbye to. You'll be the person whose touch he still feels long after you're gone. There's a strange thing about goodbyes. We treat them as if they're permanent, as if the moment someone walks away, the story is over. But the truth is, most goodbyes aren't endings. They're transitions. And when you understand that, you stop seeing the goodbye as the last word and start seeing it as a chance to set the tone for what comes next. That's where the magic is. That's where you go from being a moment in his day to being the thought he carries into tomorrow. Most people leave a goodbye hanging in the air like a full stop. It's abrupt, it's rushed, it's transactional. Okay, see you later, bye. Done. And that's fine if you want to be just another fleeting interaction. But if you want to be remembered, if you want him to feel you even after you've walked away, you have to frame the goodbye differently. You don't let it be about absence. You let it be about possibility. You leave him not with the heaviness of an ending, but with the lightness of anticipation. Think about it: when something ends, the energy drops. When something feels like it's to be continued, the energy rises. That's why cliffhangers work in movies. That's why we stay up way too late watching just one more episode. We want to see what happens next. A great goodbye has that same quality. It leaves him with the sense that there's more to come, that what you just shared isn't the peak, but the beginning. Now, you don't have to overcomplicate this. It doesn't mean making promises you can't keep or laying out a grand plan for the future. Sometimes it's as simple as planting a seed. Maybe it's next time you're choosing the place. Or you've just convinced me I need to beat you at that game next time. Even something as playful as, I can't wait to hear that story you didn't finish telling me. These little moments are powerful because they don't close the book. They open another chapter. And what's even more beautiful is that they leave him feeling excited, not anxious. A lot of people unintentionally create anxiety when they say goodbye. They leave the other person wondering, will I hear from her again? Was that the last time? But when you end with hope, when you drop that little thread that connects today with tomorrow, you replace anxiety with anticipation. He's not left wondering if it's over. He's left looking forward to what's next. There's something deeply attractive about someone who doesn't treat every goodbye as heavy or final. It shows a kind of confidence, a kind of lightness. It says, I'm not clinging to this moment, I'm enjoying it. And I already know there's more where that came from. That energy is magnetic. It makes someone want to be around you more because they don't feel pressured. They feel uplifted. They feel like being with you is something that brings them joy, not stress. And here's the key. Hope doesn't have to be about logistics. It doesn't always have to be about making plans. Sometimes it's just about leaving him with a feeling. For example, you might say, you make me curious about what else is possible with us. That's not a plan. That's a feeling. But that feeling will stay with him. It will echo when he thinks of you later. It plants the thought in his mind that this isn't the end, that there's more to explore. The most unforgettable people are the ones who know how to turn a goodbye into a beginning. They know how to take what could feel like a loss and turn it into an invitation. And that's not about playing games or pretending you don't care. It's about recognizing that endings are illusions. Every goodbye can be a bridge to the next moment if you choose to make it one. I want you to think about someone you still remember to this day. Maybe it was a teacher, a mentor, a friend, or even someone you dated. Chances are, when they left you, they didn't just vanish. They left you with words, with energy, with a gesture that made you feel like your story with them wasn't finished. That's why you kept thinking of them. That's why they still live in your memory. You can be that person for someone else, simply by refusing to let the goodbye be the end. And this doesn't mean being over the top. You don't need to dramatize the moment. In fact, subtlety often works best. It could be as simple as that extra look you give him before you turn to leave. Or the way you say, talk to you soon, in a tone that suggests you actually mean it. Even a smile that lingers a second longer than expected can do the job. These things seem small, but they create a powerful emotional thread. They tell him, this isn't goodbye. This is just pause. The mistake people often make is thinking that intensity is what makes them unforgettable. They think they have to leave a grand statement or some unforgettable line. But the truth is, what makes you unforgettable is how you make him feel about what comes next. If he walks away feeling empty, he forgets. If he walks away feeling hopeful, he remembers. Because hope is addictive. Hope keeps us coming back. So when the moment comes and you're saying goodbye, resist the urge to shut the door. Instead, leave it open just a crack. Give him something to look forward to, even if it's just the unspoken promise that this energy between you isn't going anywhere. Because when you do that, you become more than a memory. You become something he's actively looking forward to. And that's the difference between being someone he once knew and being someone he can't stop thinking about.